second New Jersey governor's debate has come and gone. Last night, Democrat Mikey Sherrill, and Republican Jack Ciattarelli faced off at the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center. The candidates discussed everything from Sherrill's military records, the state sale tax, and President Trump's performance in office. Joining us now is Kristoffer Shields, professor and director at the Eagleton Center on the American Governor. Kristoffer, good to see you. We spoke yesterday leading up to this debate. Now, with the debate now being in the rearview mirror, give me some of your hits and misses from last night from each of the candidates.
Yeah, sure. I think we were more or less predicted what we would see, which is a little bit more fire on stage than we got in the first debate. The first half last night, they were still feeling each other out a little bit, I think. But once we got to the second half, we saw a little bit more attack, a little bit more emotion on stage, which was different from the first debate. I thought that's what went well for Mikey Sherrill. I think her supporters have been asking for a little bit more urgency, for a little bit more emotion on stage, and I think we saw that last night. And then, Jack Ciattarelli, I thought he did a pretty good job of getting into some of the details of what it is that he would want to do when he was in office. So I thought both had reasonably good nights, but of course, being a debate, they also had some misses as well.
Yeah. Do you give Ciattarelli a little bit of an advantage because he's done this before? I mean, he's not his first go around, as we discussed the other day. He's been in this position before on the debate stage for this position. So, I mean, he's got that narrative and he's got some of those lines down pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely comfortable with the format. Like you said, he's done it before. This is the third time that he's run for governor for New Jersey, so he has that experience. But Mikey Sherrill has a lot of elected experience too, running for the House of Representatives. And I thought that they both looked pretty comfortable. Again, the first half, I thought they both looked like they were sort of getting used to the fact that there was no audience there this time, as opposed to the town hall last time. But once they got back from the break, I thought both looked much more comfortable.
Now, Mikey Sherrill's military record has been called into. Well, we knew once the National Archive, released the unredacted military record that this was going to be a big issue, even though Ciattarelli had said, I'm not going to use this. But last night it was used quite a bit, and it came up quite a bit, and it's continued to come up. How do you think that's impacting this race?
It's an interesting issue because it sort of has two parts to it, right? There's the question of her not walking at her graduation, which came up last night. But then there's also the question of the release of the records with her personal information. And it sort of gives both sides a role to play in that issue. And I think what it sort of does is blunts the issue overall to a certain extent. Because when one side, if Jack Ciattarelli talks about, well, why didn't you walk at graduation? Then she can sort of come back with, well, why did you, assist in the release of my unredacted records? And my sense is that a lot of voters sort of look at that and say, I don't know what they're arguing about here. Can we move on to something else?
Yeah, because it's one of those things, because neither one is really answering the question. So it just kind of goes round and round and round. And it still doesn't help with my property taxes or your property taxes. So let's get to that. That was, obviously, first and foremost, New Jersey residents want to know, what are you going to do to make my life a little bit more affordable? And how do you think they both did on that front?
I thought we got a few more details last night than we've gotten before. I thought both of them, we got a better sense of, affordability is, as we've said, it's the key, but it's also a broad term. So figuring out what affordability means to you, what it means to each of the candidates, I think we got a little bit more on that. I think Jack Ciattarelli did a little bit more on, he got more specific about energy last night, what his long-term plan would be for energy, and Mikey Sherrill did as well. So I thought we got a little bit better sense of how we can differentiate between the two candidates on affordability, whereas before we had just sort of gotten, yes, affordability is important to us. We know that it's an issue. So I thought that was actually good for both of them last night.
And the 10% sales tax that Sherrill is claiming that Ciattarelli wants to implement, he had flat out said, no, that is not the case. That's a flat out lie.
Yeah, that's what he said on stage last night, and I, there's no reason to think that that's not true. But it is true that if you're going to, New Jersey, you have to have a balanced budget. So if you're going to lower taxes, then the revenues and the expenditures have to match. So part of the things you have to ask the candidates is they're talking about lowering revenues or increasing expenditures is how do you make that come into balance? Where is it that you're going to find the money?
Got it. If you had to pick someone who had the advantage last night, if you had to pick one, what would you say?
I hate picking winners of debates because I think in the end, it doesn't really matter. I think both sort of gave their side a reason to say that they won the debate. But in terms of what they needed to accomplish, I actually think that Mikey Sherrill might have accomplished a little bit more of what she needed to accomplish last night than Jack Ciattarelli did. But it certainly wasn't a loss in any way for Jack Ciattarelli, because I think that he did a good job as well.
Even across the board, then. We'll leave it at that. Kristoffer, good to see you. Thank you again. Our professor and director of the Eagleton Center of the American Governor, Kristoffer Shields. Voters will head to the polls November 4th. For more information on the New Jersey governor's race, you can head to CBSNewYork.com. Okay, in other news right now.